Hi, everyone. This is Cody from the Punk Rock Horror Podcast. And for today's cold open, we are going to take a minute of silence for those who continue to be silenced and for those who continue to fight for a better, equal, and accepting world.
Hey, welcome back to the Punk Rock Horror Podcast. I'm Matt.
And I'm Cody.
And today we're here to remind you that it's summer, and with the change of seasons comes a bunch of new content being thrown on all the streaming services all at the same time. And holy crap, it's overwhelming.
I know. Oh my God, man. Me and Audrey are just finishing up season 1 of Avatar The Last Airbender. And then there's all this other stuff that's coming out with all the streaming. And I'm like, oh, piece of candy. Oh, piece of candy.
Oh, piece of candy. Yeah, right.
And I'm like, oh God, I want to finish Avatar though, but like I'm actually being good and only watching it with Audrey, so like I can make up for it with watching all the extra shit out there.
I will argue though that Avatar is one of those series that continually gets better the more you go back and rewatch it. So you can always use that as your motivation.
Oh, I know, but it's just mostly I'll get lost for where me and Audrey are.
Got it.
And I want her to have the whole story because she's really liking it, and I think she's mostly liking it because I like it. But what's funny is I remember like when I was back in college and with one of my exes, her and her roommate at the time like loved Avatar: The Last Airbender. And I never watched it because I actually never watched Avatar when it was on Nickelodeon and when it was all coming out and stuff, except for like a couple episodes here and there. And I used to shit on it all the time in front of them, like, that show's garbage and like all this stuff. And now I'm watching it. I'm like, it's so good.
To be fair, it was also because you hated that person, and that's totally okay.
Yeah.
So, also, real quick, just want to give a thank you to everyone who took that minute of silence with us. So today we're going to focus on being entertaining, but the way we're going to show our solidarity with everyone is to actually, and is our way of in supporting of the entire Black Lives Matter movement as well, is actually we're going to be celebrating some amazing African-American horror directors and talking about them and talking about their movies. And this is one that we're really excited to get into.
Yeah.
But before we do that, though, sorry, go ahead, buddy.
I would say, we're going to talk about some influential directors and also some very influential actors and the movies. So, like, some of the movies we're going to talk had white directors, but they had very influential aspects to them for the African-American movement and everything in movies. And especially when it comes to horror, it's so good. It's so awesome when I was reading up on this stuff. Horror. Yeah. For the win again. That's all I gotta say.
Dude, like William Crane, talk about like a legit like horror director name through and through. Like William Crane, like, oh man, like
you know what's also awesome about William Crane?
What?
We share a birthday.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I have the same birthday as William Crane. I was like, hell yeah, Blackula for the fucking win.
Yeah, I think we have to watch Blackula now for your birthday. Like, it just feels like the complete triangle. One side is your birthday, the other side it's William Crane's, and then we have Blackula.
Yep. I know, and both our birthdays are coming up.
Maybe we could summon him and have him be a guest.
That'd be so cool.
So, jumping into it first, since it's still our beginning of the week episode, our Tuesday episode, which, by the way, going to give kind of an apology. Sorry to sneak that scheduling change onto everyone. Just bringing it out on Tuesdays has worked out better for us with the whole epidemic, and I think that's what we're going to keep with going forward. So keep it in mind. So if you still support us on Patreon or well support us on Patreon, this episode will come out on Monday instead of Sunday. And the official release that everyone will have access to it will be Tuesdays. Our Friday episodes will stay the same. They will still come out on Fridays. And if you're a patron, it'll come out on Thursday for you.
Yeah, I was gonna say this whole thing really messed up our scheduling because it messed up everything for my life.
Man, 2020 is off to a real bang.
Dude, I had to adjust all the plans I did after when this started. I had to readjust my entire job situation.
You know what? You want to know something, Cody?
God.
This is gonna blow your mind because I don't think you realize this because I didn't realize this till the other day. But we're already halfway through this year.
Oh my God!
Yeah, we're halfway through.
Worse.
It's just so awful.
We haven't even had our heat wave yet.
It's coming in now. We
haven't even had people complaining about heat. It's been so cold. We're getting hurricanes in June.
It's an interesting time to be alive. For
sure. God.
My kid's gonna ask one day, "Hey Dad, what was 2020 like?" I'm gonna strip tell her and be like, "Well, unless you had just a shit ton of weed to get you through it, it was terrifying all the time."
Yeah, fucking for real, man. I was just gonna be like, Dad, why were you crying so much during that year? Cause everything changed. Literally everything got turned on its head, sweetie. I'm glad your first memory is that. Cause Audrey's just on the cusp of when she'll start actually having her real memories, memories and stuff.
She's totally gonna call you out on shit now.
I know, she's gonna actually have I'm gonna ask her 10 years from now, hey sweetie, what was your first memory? When you had your nervous breakdown because of the apocalypse. I'm like, all right, cool.
Aaron and Audrey are gonna be in the same room. Aaron's gonna be like, "Oh, you're dead too."
Yeah.
Mine colored on the wall with charcoal.
Mine sucked his thumb in the corner for 3 days straight.
See, this is the one part of mental health that I wish we could also talk about a bit more, is when we can actually just joke about it, because it makes it a lot easier to deal with it. It's one of those things, man, where you can kind of laugh at yourself and heal from that. And I think it's good when we can do that.
Oh yeah, I've totally looked at myself and laughed at some of my mental breakdowns. Oh my God, I let that get so bad.
Yeah, obviously, and depending how severe it is too, as well, matters. But I don't want to say if it's an easy one, because it's never easy, but it's if it was an easier managed one, I guess I would say. I don't even know if that's the correct way to put it. Those are the ones that are easier to look back on and kind of just joke about and laugh about. Obviously, I didn't actually go draw with charcoal on all my walls, but just being able to joke about it in that manner, it does make it a little easier.
Yeah.
So keep it in mind, we're only talking about ourselves, and nowhere we're trying to talk about anyone else that had a nervous breakdown either. So
help with mine. It's I talk about using charcoal to draw all over my walls because I'm if I don't say it out loud, I might actually do it.
I've thought about it. That scene in The Mouth of Madness with Sam Neill where he's in, it looks really I really want to reenact that scene. I bet my wife would appreciate that if I just drew crosses everywhere.
Just look at her look, I'm Sam Neill. I'm Sam Neill. Now I'm going to find the dinosaurs.
Whee! And I throw on a hat and just jump over the balcony.
You just see Lauren going,
must be that new Adderall he's taking.
just another fucking Tuesday.
Oh man. All right, let's jump into what's happening for this week. So
I actually got a lot in horror, dude. Holy shit.
Yeah, there's some decent stuff here, man. So let's take it apart. So, kind of give a little context on this one. There's just been this rumor of Universal's Jurassic World Aftermath, which was originally a mod for Half-Life 2, and it was legitimately just like Jurassic Park, but built it as a mod in the Half-Life 2 engine. Kind of get excited about this because we've talked about this and now we're kind of actually getting it. Well, now the mod will, instead of just being a mod, be a standalone game. So you won't need Half-Life 2 at all for the game to work, explains the team behind the project. We wish to let you know that Jurassic Life now only requires Source SDK 2013, which is free and obtainable on Steam. While the game won't be released until later this year, Butane have put together a training video that introduces the game's weapons, animals, and voice actors. And you play as the role as Robert Muldoon, a pre-Raptor food, Robert Muldoon, just to be clear for everyone.
Okay. Unless you read the books, he doesn't get eaten in the book.
In the movie, we're talking about the movie. But anyways, but you've been chosen by International Genetic Technologies, Inc., or NGen, obviously, for short. And you have this wonderful opportunity. You're now a park ranger for a little something called, Jurassic Park. But you have maintenance to do, which obviously means taking care of dinosaurs. The team has also stressed that the project is a non-profit fan game that is not intended for commercial use. Whether or not Universal buys that remains to be seen, but until we hear anything else about that, let's keep our fingers crossed. I mean, so you're not going to really see commercials for this game, unless you're actively on Steam or in the Steam community. You're not going to really know about it, but now from us as well. So
now you know.
Yeah, now you know. It's literally what it is. It's going to be another dinosaur video game, and I'm really excited about this because it's just the fact that there's still fans out there. I kind of hope this goes the other way though, and Universal sees what they do, and it's just like, hey, we're willing to fund this project if you're willing to make another game that's like this. That would be tight. I'd be like, we're not getting Dino Crisis anytime soon, so fuck it. I'm willing to take on a team that's just making dinosaur content for everyone. Because I know actually the next generation Xbox actually is gonna have also a Left 4 Dead-esque game, but with dinosaurs, and I'm just like, what the shit?
Okay, so when I saw, because all I was thinking was why hasn't that been done before? The dinosaurs with the Left 4 Dead thing, because you don't even need genetically modified dinosaurs. You literally already have the dinosaurs that could do all the special zombie things. Of course, you just use the raptors as the mobs, then you use Utah raptors as the hunters. Good point. Yeah. Then you'll use the Dilophagus as the spitters, because that's what they do. And then you have so as a charger, you could use the dinosaur with the skull.
That helps a lot.
I can't. It's the one that has the
Triceratops.
No, it has the chrome dome and it rams things like a goat.
Oh, I know you're talking. I know what you're talking about.
I can't remember the name. And then for the tank, you can just do an Allosaurus. It's just a smaller T-Rex. And then you can do special bosses that are a Triceratops, which is just an OP charger dinosaur. And then of course the T-Rex is just gigantic, and you have to do you have to shoot things to blow it up or some shit,
Oh, I could totally see the T-Rex being a 1 versus 4 kind of thing. For sure. In the way of killing Floor 2, where someone gets to be the boss by random, you know? That would be really tight. Oh, by the way, it's called Pachycephalosaurus.
Yeah, Patchy.
You know what's really funny is that I could say dinosaur names really easily, but God forbid any German, any Russian, and basically any European sounding name just fucking, put a fork in me. I'm done. I can't handle it. Dinosaurs.
You couldn't even say a figgy. Effigy.
Exactly. I know, right? I fucking
Pachycephalosaurus. Effigy.
Pachycephalosaurus. Super simple. Effigy. Fuck.
It's a figgy, right? A figgy.
So, remember me talking about Kevin James's step into horror with the movie Becky?
Yeah, dude, I saw a trailer for it. That thing looks tight.
So, good news is for Drive-In Box Office, a new movie from IFC Midnight, their creature feature called The Wretched, has now been at the top of the drive-in box office charts for a month now, but it's finally got some competition now that Becky is part of the picture too. Quiver Distribution's Kevin James and Lulu Wilson starring home invasion film debuted at 42, that's right, 42 drive-in locations this weekend and pulled in $178,186. Variety reported this a few days ago. The Wretched, meanwhile, made another $162,000 at 95 total drive-in locations over the over the weekend. Real quick, remember me going back to, I'm going to go back to last Friday episode. Remember me talking about the whole burp thing? This is what I'm fucking talking about. This shit is awful, man. Like, I almost got through that whole statement, and it's just like, burp. So, it's my life. But anyways, it carried the horror movie to an impressive 1 million milestone at the box office. Variety noted that a total of 554 of the nation's 5,400 movie locations are open, including 243 drive-ins, with IFC and Quiver currently the only distributors actually reporting their box office numbers on a weekly basis. It's really exciting to see that indie horror movies are still staying alive. They're still making their ways, and I'm using indie kind of in a loose way, just because technically these are still indie films, but they're just attached to bigger names, bigger corporations, kind of. So we can get to the fine details if we want, but that's not what today's episode is about. Point being is that it's extremely exciting to see that horror movies like this are just hitting 1 million, and the fact that, you know, people are going back to the drive-ins. I mean, we talked about it again, man. We've talked about it before. It's just that this is the one type of American tradition that I will always support 100%. Because the drive-in is a magical thing, and it's something that I'm so excited to finally see being revitalized, because I can't wait to take my daughter to get her first drive-in experience. Like, it's just, this is phenomenal, man. Like, I'm so excited.
Oh, yeah. No, same here. Like, I remember I used to do the drive-in every year for my birthday, and it was so much fun.
We should see if we can do it for your birthday this year. If there's a location open, man, we should totally make it.
I think the one up here in Fort Collins.
Oh, dude, you know what would be fucking tight if we could I don't know how we're gonna pull it off, but if we get enough interest in it, and enough of our listeners want to see it happen, is if we could do the Punk Rock Horror Podcast drive-in. And just like,
that'd be so cool.
Yeah, maybe we'll get like a tricked out fucking RV, and just like we'll pick up a lucky number of listeners to come and go see a movie with us at the drive-in, and I don't know, man. This is just me spitballing shit. So fucking, I mean, hey, I don't know. Maybe some ghouls, gals, creeps, and mutants will reach out to us and be like, "Hey, that's totally awesome. I want to be a part of that." If so, we might actually follow along with this idea. But either way, man, drive-in theaters I'm just so happy.
Yeah, same, man.
Other news. So, in spirit to our recent part 1 and part 2 of H.P. Lovecraft, we mentioned cosmic horror as well. And well, this movie is a big influence of that. Event Horizon is coming to Scream Factory Blu-ray with new extras, and a search has gone underway for additional, if there is any additional footage for the film. Excuse me. See, again, the fucking burp thing. No one wants to be Rick because this sucks. Scream Factory has announced earlier this week, today, that Paul W.S. Anderson's fan favorite 1997 space horror flick Event Horizon is finally coming to collector's edition Blu-ray this coming fall. The upgraded and definitive Blu-ray release is set to arrive on September 29th, but please do know that due to the COVID situation, that the date could change because everybody's still experiencing that domino effect from the whole situation, which caused a lot of delays. And this is actually quoted from the actual company, from Scream Factory. We'll do our best to keep this date, of course, but we're still in an unprecedented time in which getting access to talent for extras or setting up film transfers are more challenging than they were before. We appreciate your understanding now and in advance, and hopefully there will be some stabilization. New extras are in progress and will be announced on a later date, says Scream Factory. We can confirm today, though, that we are doing a new 4K scan of the film. As for any much inquired about additional footage, in addition to what's been presented on prior releases, they're looking into it as best they can. So with that being exciting, man, who knows like what footage they're going to get. I will be kind of the one guy who stands out in the open and says, I hope they do move the date in order to make this Blu-ray just that much more awesome to own. I mean,
I agree.
Take the time, man. Everybody's doing it. But if Scream Factory can pull it off and come out with a fantastic collector's edition that just pleases the fans, then bravo to them. But I will say that take your time. Do what you guys got to do, and let's bring a fan favorite so that way people can hold it in their hands and watch it and then argue with their friends about why it's a great movie.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Like when it comes to those kind of things, man, like I do think that take your time, like just release the best product you can release, Yeah.
I guess Ridley Scott still wants to make its third Alien prequel. We're not going to touch on that because there's nothing really to touch on with it. I really want to do it. All right. Well,
all right, Ridley. You do that.
You do it, buddy.
Ask Disney.
But in news that could be described as, unless you were living under a rock, Chernobyl director Johan Renck will be directing the pilot. Oh, excuse me, Johan
Reich.
Thank you, Rohan Reich. Thank you, excuse me. Will be directing the pilot episode of HBO's series The Last of Us. So it was announced early in the year that the hit zombie game Last of Us, which again, if you don't know what that is, then I don't know what to tell you. Go look up some gameplay footage right now. Is getting a series adaptation over at HBO with game creator and writer Neil Druckmann on board to co-write and produce, along with Craig Mazin of Chernobyl as well. Is developing the planned series for HBO, and he will be working with Druckmann to write and executive produce the adaptation. While chatting,
just say Chernobyl?
Oh my God! I think I did say.
Do you believe in radiation?
Chernobyl.
I can feel my face; it's melting off. Why did you stop that reactor? No.
Oh yeah, but you got to do the effect of like everything hurts. Why does it burn so much? Like it's just a picture of Chernobyl, but it's just like giant. The buildings are replaced with giant pictures of Cher.
Yeah, it's just. Oh my God.
Like that Ferris wheel that everyone sees in the photos. Just like there's a Cher on each one of the rides.
No, yeah, each one of them's just another picture of Cher.
Oh my God. Well, anyways, while chatting with Johan of Bates Motel and Chernobyl, excuse me, has just revealed that also attached to HBO's Last of Us is set to direct at least the pilot episode. So it's not said that he's going to be on it for the whole thing, but it's just the pilot. He went on to saying, I'm an executive producer on it and attached to it. It's an ongoing TV series, so that's not something that I will be able to take on to the fullest extent. But I'm part of that series, and I will be directing at least the pilot, says Johan. Then we'll see how it goes on further. THR also noted back in March that the HBO series will cover the events of the original game. It's supposed to be a loyal adaptation of the main game, and so we'll see how it goes, man. I mean, I liked Chernobyl. I really did. I thought it was a cool series. I could definitely see the criticisms of why people see it's a slog, but I mean, if you're really into that type of morbid history, it's just going to fascinate you the entire time. But I think it could work, man. I mean, I've seen crazier, matchups for series. So I mean, Chris Rock is making a Saw movie, so why not?
Yeah, I know. Seriously, is it like LeBron James wanting to make a Friday the 13th movie?
Oh, I don't know. That could have just been rumor. I actually wonder now.
Yeah.
So I mean, is he going to try to take a third shot, and then here comes a spear out of nowhere and just impales him?
I don't know.
Because I mean, that's what Jason would or what if would piss off every horror fan is if there was a one-on-one game between LeBron James and fucking Jason Voorhees, and they actually played basketball.
You know what? I'd watch the shit out of that movie. Fucking see LeBron James like teabag Jason as he's dunking on him. Like that'd be so fucking funny. You just see Jason like throw his machete down in anger and just goes, "Fuck it, I'm going back in the lake."
And then you just hear Pamela talk to Jason. I didn't raise a bitch, now did I?
Mama didn't raise no quitter.
Mama didn't raise no quitter.
You could punch a man's head off in one punch, but you can't fucking dunk it.
I know, right? Like, you think you'd have enough ferocity to just throw the ball at the hoop and it would just shatter the whole hoop. Just
oh my
and
God,
then that's the movie. And then LeBron sees his potential and he's like, God damn. Finally,
and that's where Jason becomes the newest member of the Lakers.
Yeah.
He's like, I am the Crystal Laker.
Like, he has to have 13 on his back. Like, and can you just imagine him walking up in that yellow, like, athletic suit and just like I can make a good basketball noise, but
he dribbles the ball with the machete.
Yeah, and he just like every time he pushes someone out of the way, their neck snaps.
Well, I guess the Lakers win the championship because then all the other players are dead.
Yeah. Well, how did they have such a dominating win? Well, they literally murdered everyone. Yeah, they were great on the court. No, that dude literally murdered every single player in the NBA who wasn't a Laker. Even the coaches.
Especially the referees. He did like that yellow card.
Well, how are the cheerleaders? The cheerleaders are also dead. He does not work well with that. We found that out the rough way.
Yeah, that's why we don't have any LA Laker cheerleaders anymore. It's just quiet.
Oh, man. Okay, so the last article for today. In news that we can only be described in as, Sam Raimi handpicks Hole in the Ground director Lee Cronin to direct the next Evil Dead movie. So we've actually kind of talked about this before, and The Hole in the Ground actually was a very, very well-received Netflix horror film. If you're going to watch any movie about like a young boy in a horror film, I strongly recommend you watch this one and just burn Eli, because Eli will just be a waste of your time. So anytime I can throw shade to that fucking movie, I will. Like, I hate that movie. Definitely deserves it. Like, I can't say I focus. Coming back to it. Hole in the Ground. Fantastic Netflix film. Well, anyways, so Sam Raimi has revealed last year that a brand new Evil Dead movie was in the works with a new director he handpicked, and Bruce Campbell spilled the beans to Empire this week because who else? Campbell has announced.
I was like, man, that got spilled today, so I hope you saw it.
So Campbell has announced that Lee Cronin, the Hole in the Ground, is the director selected by Raimi and the team, with Cronin on board to write and direct the next Evil Dead. It's called Evil Dead now, Campbell added. Sam handpicked Lee. He did a cool movie called The Hole in the Ground. We're going to get that sucker out as soon as practical. Cronin's Evil Dead now won't feature the character of Ash and presumably won't have any ties to Fede Alvarez's Evil Dead, instead telling a brand new story within the universe. From this point forward, they kind of have to stand on their own, which is fine and liberating, says Campbell. You could have different heroes, different heroines in this case. This one's going to be a little more dynamic. We just want to keep the series current, and the mantra really is that our heroes and heroines are just regular people, and that's what we're going to continue. As always, A24's The Hole in the Ground was released last year, and it's certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. It definitely is worth your time. And the reason why I attach Netflix to it so much is because that's where it made its rounds. A24's films are either, if you follow A24, you're always going to hear about what they're coming out with, but if you don't, it just kind of like circulates, and you kind of hear about it. That's why everybody was really confused about Midsommar when it came out, because everybody just knew it was like this psychedelic horror film, and no one really, went and watched it. And if you did, then you were either bored, which I have no more comments to have to go towards you, or you loved it, which I would love to hang out with you. But point being is that
just like, if you didn't like it, I mean, we can't hang out, but
No, we can totally hang out. I just love being a shit about it. Point being, this is definitely like a director that I did not see coming being picked to be the guy that's going to direct Evil Dead. Now, as a diehard fanboy, I agree with what Bruce says. It's all about everyday heroes, and that's what's the main pull of the series. I mean, Ash versus Evil Dead, even though it's still focused on Ash, still had him creating, the Ghost Speeder team with Pablo and everyone, and it was everyday heroes for the most part. And so it's just
I mean, like, take the reboot too. It was the hero in the end was someone who is a normal person just recovering from addiction,
Yeah.
Like, so, it is everyday heroes. They're relatable people.
Man, I'm still looking forward to it because I'm like, you know what? If it keeps the whole universe going and if they expand on it, fine. I am willing to see it. I know there's a lot of diehards that are going to be really, really against this and are just like, no, don't touch it, leave it alone. It's perfect the way it is. And I it's hard to also agree with that argument, but also want them to like take creative control over it. I'm definitely nervous because this is the first time that anyone's ever done this with this, treasure of a franchise. But we'll see, man. I'm hopeful nonetheless.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what it is.
Yeah, so we'll see, man. I love Evil Dead, and that's like if we were ever fortunate enough to get Sam Raimi and or Bruce Campbell on this podcast, you would have to take over because I would only want to talk about everything Evil Dead. I would only want to talk about Spider-Man. I would just want to talk about everything that he's done, man, and just pick apart both brains. And I'm sure in some way I would be like completely obnoxious to both of them as well. But I can't help it, man, because it is the absolute franchise that I love near and dear to my heart. And nothing's ever going to change that.
I don't know. I feel like if we actually got them on the podcast, you would be too quiet from excitement. And then after the entire recording, that's when you'd be like, oh my God, I love Evil Dead.
I would send them a huge text or message just like, this is what I wanted to say and I'm so sorry I didn't say it, but this is also what I said. I'm sorry I didn't say it. Hey, did you know that I saw you in this movie? You were actually really great in this. I actually thought it was really cool. Hey, by the way, I also watched your movie, this one-off movie that you did that no one ever talked about. I thought it was really great as well. Hey, by the way, I'm sorry if this is really weird.
They're like, all right, just have Cody send us the info.
Knowing Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell, they just like put it in the pile.
Yeah, probably. I could just see Bruce, especially Bruce Campbell, was like, "Hey, it's all good, man. I get it. This isn't the first one today, even.
This isn't the first. You're totally fine. You're not the first one. Usually they're right in my face. No." Oh, man. Alrighty. So with that in mind, ghouls, gals, creeps, and mutants, we are going to go ahead and jump into today's main content, which also real quick, I'm going to throw a really quick shout out to a fan that reached out to us recently and just wanted to talk to us and took a big chance just reaching out to us. And he was really nervous about it. I want to give a huge shout out to Danny Christopher. He's a cool person. He has his own podcast called At Your Darkest that he's, jumping into. He just came out with, and I want to give him a shout out. We love all of our fans, listeners, ghouls, gals, creeps, and mutants alike who reach out to us. So, and I just want to really quick share his story. He actually did say that he was nervous reaching out to us because he wants to come on as a guest too. And he was nervous about it. Wasn't sure how we were going to react. And I told him, hey man, we practice what we preach. We love talking to all of our fans. We love talking to all of our listeners, asking your questions and just being friendly with you. If you are also a listener and you were wondering the same thing, feel free to reach out to us. We love to hear from all of you. Seriously, thank you so much for your continued support and just being brilliant, amazing people. With that in mind, Cody, intro us in today's content.
All right. For today's content, we said earlier, we decided that we're going to talk about the greatest influences of African-American representation in movies and great African-American directors and some of their stuff that they've done. And just like, we're going to touch a little bit on everything and just like how these have influenced the horror genre, why they're important, and why they're important to not just the horror genre, but to society, and also just like the movement of African American representation in movies and everything all around the world.
Real quick, as we jump in today, which I'm sure you're also going to touch on it as well, but if you also want a great documentary to watch about African American movement within the horror genre, I strongly recommend they check out the documentary called Horror Noir, and it's all about African American directors, influencers, creators, everyone who had their, not just their moment, but made horror for what it is. It's a really, really cool, like, piece of horror history that we don't really know much about, and that documentary does a great job covering a lot of it too. So I also strongly recommend that you check that out. But now what's also great about this episode today, which I also want to point out one last thing, is that now you can have knowledge to come back to with at anybody who tries to use the only good one that came out was Get Out. So
oh yeah, no, there's so many more.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this episode because I've hated that argument so much of just like, well, the only good one was Get Out, and then that came the other one where they were like all, weird and whatnot, and you can't remember the name, and that is the usual argument I usually hear about it, and so I'm just like, this is a construct. Does no one remember Night of the Living Dead? Like, and the fact that the protagonist was an African American male and he survived for a long time.
I mean, he dies in the end, but we're actually going to talk about that.
I'm still giving it to him.
Oh yeah, no. So, Night of the Living Dead, as everyone knows, is of course monumental to the horror genre. Came out in 1964, and like you said, it was one of the first movies to have an African American as not only the lead, though, but he was also the one in charge of the group, and it was a group of Caucasian people. And one of the biggest reasons why it's super significant is because of the time period that this came out. It's the mid 60s. So like racism is super rampant, and also it just had a big social commentary of not only of a African American lead, but also with his death at the very end, because just like now with the movement now being so vocal, back then it was still the same issues of Caucasian people in power abusing it against African Americans. And the fact that, like, at the end of the movie, spoiler if you haven't seen this, even though it came out in the 60s,
I know, right?
He gets shot at the very end.
What?
And without any question, no nothing. The white, it's significant. It's a group of white men going around. They see him in the house, and just without question, they just dome him. They shoot him in the head, and then they burn his body without question and stuff like that. And so that was like one of the big things about it too, was them killing an African American man with no rhyme or reason. One fun fact that I loved about this movie, because it was directed by George A. Romero, who's not African American, but he casted Dwayne Jones for that role. Not because he was African American, because the role didn't have a specific race. He casted him because he was the best actor. To me, I was like, that's fucking dope. George A. Romero didn't follow along on the fold of the time, where like, even though it didn't have a race, he didn't just cast another white guy because, the times. He casted the best actor. And he was like, Dwayne's the best guy. He had the best performance, and he's going to carry this movie, and he did. And he took a chance, and it was awesome.
Oh, man, that movie literally was. So, if you look at it now, it was, like, very revolutionary with, like, how, like, just obviously the movie itself, what it did for horror. But then when you're reading off, like, what you just went over, the things that happened behind the scenes, like... Yeah. I mean, the fact that George A. Romero just recognized this man's skill and not the color of his skin was just fantastic. And it just, it just makes me all think of all those movies where an actor was purely cast just because of the way they looked. I mean, not for like, because they look good, and like, obviously in horror it gets a little different because there are some roles that are casted because of, the makeup job on them will look just more terrifying under them. Like, that's why.
Yeah.
I always forget his name, but he's done so many great roles as just like as a creature. And it's not Andy Serkis, but Andy Serkis does fit in this example too. But you get what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Like that's just it just makes me love Romero.
Are you talking about the super like skinny tall dude who plays the fish guy in
Blue
Shape of Water?
Well, yeah, and also in Hellboy plays Blue.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
yeah. So
Okay.
or
Yeah,
not
I know
or Abe, same Abe,
Abe.
basically.
Yeah, he plays Abe. Yeah, he's the actor without a face. He's in so many movies, but you'll never know him by his face because he always has makeup on. So I know who you're talking about. But yeah, and so jumping forward a bit in the years to our next movie, one really important one is actually Blackula that we talked about earlier, and it came out in 1972. And Blackula was the first blaxploitation horror movie. It's also kind of credited as the first blaxploitation movie, but it's really hard to find the first one, just like it's hard to find the very first rap song. Just for a quick explanation, blaxploitation is an ethnic subgenre of the exploitation film that emerged in the United States during the early 1970s. The films, while popular, suffered backlash for disproportionate numbers of stereotypical film characters showing bad or questionable motives, including roles as criminals.
Oh, wow.
But blaxploitation is actually, movies are actually extremely important. Because while they did play up the stereotypicalness of, like what a stereotypical African American would be of the time and stuff, like they're drug dealers, pimps, and stuff like that, they were also kind of satirical. They were poking fun at the stereotypes too, and they were pushed forwards equal representation where, like, not every African American person needs to be a pimp or a drug dealer or a hoe.
Yeah, or
some
crook,
kind of thug, criminal. And so Blackula, while Dracula is of course a villain, it helped pave the way for African American centric movies to the mainstream, and it also helped pave the way for an African American to be perceived as someone in power and took things by force. Because Dracula, he uses his mind and his suaveness, and he could also use his brute force. And so that was was really big about this movie, is that Blackula is more suave and stuff, like up and proper, and he's dressed nice instead of all thug and stuff, like how they would usually be represented. Another significance about this is that this movie was directed by William Crane, who is one of the first successful African American directors to come out of a top school, which was UCLA. He was the one who really helped pave the way for African American movies to come to the mainstream, because he started it with Blackula.
And now we know.
Yeah. And so moving on to the following year with the release of the horror movie Ganja and Hess in 1973. This movie is extremely significant because it is considered one of the 10 best American films of the decade at the Cadence Film Festival. It also stars Dwayne Jones of Night of the Living Dead fame. He plays the titular character Dr. Hess, who is transforming into a vampire, but who is also falling in love with Ganja, played by Marlene Clark. This was one of the first movies to use vampirism as a metaphor for addiction. So it was like one of those artistic movies that really stepped out of the box and really helped it out. And it definitely helped with having African American leads. Like both of them. And the fact that it's also has been adopted into the Museum of Modern Art's permanent collection shows how important this movie was and still is.
Absolutely. When I was actually helping you with this research as well, I looked up more about Ganja and Hess too, and it's just Emma was going to recommend people to seek out knowledge just because of the secrets it holds. But if you read into this movie, it's also kind of hard to find a lot of information about it too. But if you can find some information, just a lot of things that went into it and everything that you already mentioned as well, Cody, just really makes you really appreciate these types of movies and what they stood for back then, and why they were made. And even though it was just supposed to be entertaining too, there's something about it,
Oh yeah, because that's the thing, when you're making a movie that has not subliminal message, but that has a message and has a meaning, especially when it's talking about society. I mean, take Night of the Living Dead for instance. You have to make it entertaining. The movie still needs to be entertaining while still giving your message so it could get through to everybody. And that's what is really solid about these movies, because their messages their underlying messages about African American life and their treatment, but they're also entertaining, so it sits in your head better.
Yeah. I want to go back really quick just to talk about like the black exploitation. So like we actually had a struggle. I know me and you also struggled with this, and even our
Oh
team
my
struggled with it.
god.
Because I asked everybody who works on the podcast. I'm like, hey, so is saying black exploitation bad, or is that literally like the term for it? And we just don't know that. And,
It's the term.
yeah, we did, and it was really kind of interesting because we just actually had to talk about it, and it's just like the fact that we're just like, wait a minute, is this actually an okay thing to say?
Is it,
You know,
is it bad?
like, are we going to be in trouble if we say this? But
Oh,
you know, I'm glad that we're talking about it. Like, it's definitely kind of one of those things where it's not to speak for, you know, everyone else, but it definitely is more so seems like one of those things where it's like they've taken it and made it their own thing, and and made it something to be proud of. And I think there is a victory and strength in that that's always worth mentioning. But I mean, that's just me kind of
yeah.
making my own point of view on it. But anyway, sorry, buddy. Keep going.
Oh no, you're good, man. So we talked about 3 amazing movies that came out and just the good that they have done. We have to talk about at least one really bad one. So Abby came out in 1974. This is a great example of miscultural representation for the movie. So this is when you take someone who comes from one culture and make them direct a movie about an entire culture that they don't understand. This is like a white guy directing an African American eccentric movie. I mean, it's a white director. I'm not going to say his name just because I didn't feel like it was important looking up his name. He's not popular. So.
Oh, that's the reason why is because he's not popular.
He's not. The movie is more important than who he is. So
I mean, we should still probably mention his name.
I mostly I couldn't find it
okay.
in the description, and I didn't look that deep. So quick synopsis: Abby is an African American female, and she is possessed by an insatiable poltergeist, and it plays hard on the stereotype of a black woman being a ravenous temptress in all the movies. Hence, a hoe. And that's why this was really bad, because he played up to those stereotypes, whether it was intentional or not. The movie is pretty offensive, but it's important because it shows why you should let people of their culture tell their stories of their culture.
Yes.
Don't, just come on.
So basically cultural appropriation?
Right?
Maybe
that might be it.
All right, I'm sorry. Yeah. That was a really annoying voice I just did, and I apologize to everybody that had to suffer through that. I'll pay for your insurance bill. Not really. Don't send me anything. I'm not paying for it. Okay. Anyways.
And sorry, I'm looking up the director right now because it's true. I should actually say who directed it. It was directed by William Girdler.
Gesundheit?
Exactly.
Gurgler?
Girdler.
Yeah, Gurgler.
Girdler.
I'm sorry. I'm purposely being a douche about it.
So, going off of that, a bad example to a good example, another good example, Candyman. One of the most important movies in horror history, in my opinion, because it came out in 1992, and it gave us Tony Todd.
God, right. It's Tony Todd.
It's Tony Todd.
Death himself in more than one facet.
Yep. It gave us Tony Todd and his amazing performance as Candyman. Candyman has now the first African American slasher to get a name as well known as Jason, Freddy, and Michael Myers. So that's why Candyman is so important. He's the first African American slasher to make the mainstream. He was directed by the legendary Clive Barker. And yes, I know I kind of just shit on the director of Abby for cultural appropriation. Not a cultural appropriation. Clive Barker takes pride in his work, and he doesn't like to use stereotypes. If you watched any of his movies, he tells a story, and he tells story about characters, not stereotypes and everything. And he generally puts out cultural appropriate movies. So it's like, I give him a pass, of course, because it's fucking Clive Barker. He takes pride in those movies. And I know so many people who love Candyman. And just it's so good. And so going on from the movies, we're going to talk about some of these very important actors and directors of these movies. And seeing as how we started off with Night of the Living Dead, I want to jump into that actor, Dwayne Jones. Dwayne Jones, he was born February 2nd, 1937. He died on July 22nd, 1988. He was the first African-American to start as a lead in a horror film. But it is also important that he denounced Night of the Living Dead until he died.
Really? I didn't actually know that.
Yeah, he hated the fact that he was tied to that movie because even though, Ganja and Hess got so many awards and everything, and Dwayne Jones is a fantastic actor, he's mostly known for Ben from Night of the Living Dead. And that was his biggest fear. That's all he's known for.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So some more accolades from this fine gentleman. He was an executive director of the Black Theater Alliance. It was a federation of theater companies from 1976 through 1981, and he continued working as a theater actor and director until the day he died.
Wow.
Yeah, that guy.
So he was what you're basically saying is that he was legitimately a legendary thespian.
Oh, yeah. Going off of this legendary thespian to our I'm going to say the modern day Dwayne Jones because of everything that he's done. Tony Todd, because he is just amazing. Okay, you know what's really funny? You know how we joke about Sam Jackson's in everything? Like Samuel L. Jackson's in fucking everything is the joke.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Tony Todd's maybe in more because he's in fucking everything.
Dude, honestly, like Tony Todd in some facets he gets a lot of love, but doesn't get enough love because like he has just such a presence on the screen, man.
Oh, I know.
Like he kind of has like that same overwhelming presence that like what is it? What I always forget his name, but he played the general in Full Metal Jacket.
Oh yeah, I forget his name too.
I'm gonna have to look it up really quick, but just like him, dude, his acting was always over the top, had a very overwhelming feeling to it, and like he just knew how to do his movies. He knew how to do his roles and how to sell them and make it work. And just Tony Todd, when he takes on a role, he molds it to his acting. He really does. I mean,
yeah, man. I mean, like he's so suave too in everything he does. Like especially when he plays villains, he's always like cool, calm, and you're like, you know what? You're saying evil things, but I like your style.
Yeah, right. Like honestly, like I changed my mind. I don't want to be Christopher Lloyd. I want Tony Todd to narrate my life.
That'd be awesome. But so the reason why I say that is because he's fucking been in over 100 theatrical and television films, and that's ranges from like on stage, like Broadway and thespian. Acting like that, to voice acting. He's been in video games. He's been in TV, cartoons. Dude, Tony, he's in everything. So I want to talk about a couple of his most notable roles. Candyman, of course, and he was huge in Star Trek. He played Worf's brother Kern in Star Trek, and he was actually in several other seasons. He plays William Bloodworth in the Final Destination franchise, aka Death. I'm pretty certain he's Death. And then Reverend Zombie, of course, in Hatchet. Fucking awesome. And this was cool to me. I was super excited about this. He voices Darkseid in Reign of the Superman and Death and Return of Superman.
Oh, yeah, I know, right? Like, because he's literally Death, dude. Tony Todd is, like, if there's ever going to be an actor for Death, it's Tony Todd through and through, no matter what. I don't care what you bring to the table. Tony Todd always fit the bill perfectly. He knew how to sound menacing and macabre and just intimidating all at the same time. Like the dude is amazing. Like I'm sorry,
yeah.
He's definitely one of those actors that I realized I was a bigger fan of than I didn't than I previously thought. And it wasn't for any like real reason. It was just mostly because like I rewatched the full Final Destination series a while back, and just like his roles in it are they're not major, but they're significant enough that like it leaves an everlasting like like an unsettling feeling throughout the entire film.
Yeah, every time he's on, he gives you the heebie-jeebies. You're just like, ugh.
You're just like I don't know.
Someone's gonna die.
And then also he's in Hatchet, and Aaron,
Yeah.
That's Aaron's favorite film, and we got to watch that with a bunch of lucky listeners as well. And it's just like, dude, like Tony Todd can't do wrong in any way.
So like when I found out that he voiced Darkseid,
I guess he's my Tom Hanks.
Yeah, when I found out he voiced Darkseid in the animated movies, I was just like, why the fuck don't they just have him play Darkseid in Justice League? Like,
I know, right?
He has the perfect voice, and I was like, man, now I don't want the Snyder cut to come out with Darkseid. Fucking just recast it as Tony Todd. Tony Todd for Darkseid.
Do it now.
That's all I want. I don't want the Snyder cut now.
That's all we need, man.
I know. Dude, oh my god, I'm trying to think of like who would he play in the Marvel?
Oh god, Galactus.
Oh shit, that'd be tight. Have him voice Galactus. That'd be fucking the tits.
That would shit myself on the silver screen. Seeing Tony Todd's voice come out of Galactus's face, just be like, yeah, we're gonna do it.
I'd be like, oh god, you could devour my world.
Marvel's the one, Mr. Todd. You could be my candy man.
You could be my candy man. Okay. You could be my Candyman, Galactus. You're my giant purple nerd.
Ooh, look at you. More like Galactits. What are you gonna do? Spank me now? Was I bad?
Gonna devour that ass.
I'm really glad our show is being picked for like high quality intellectual, just discussions. Like, I mean, like you guys don't know you don't even know what you're talking about. Like we definitely got this figured out for sure.
Jump around, twiddling your hair, like the Candyman can.
The Candyman can. Everybody at my job's like, why are you twiddling around? Like, you don't want to know?
Oh no, Tony Todd.
Unless you're the Candyman, then I'll tell you everything you want to know.
Yeah.
Oh man.
God. Yeah. So to wrap up, important directors and actors that I have looked up. I want to talk about one of our modern day biggest influences in horror, and that's we have to talk about Jordan Peele and some fun facts about him. So he was born February 21st, 1979, and he broke out into acting as a cast member of Mad TV in 2003 and 2008. I fucking loved Jordan Peele on Mad TV, man.
Dude, I know, right?
Because I liked Mad TV more than Saturday Night Live. Like I thought.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah, like Saturday Night Live was solid, but it did not hit that weird alternative humor that we love so much.
Oh yeah, because SNL has always been known for its dry, political, and satirical humor of like modern, like everyday stuff. But
like it had eccentric characters here and there.
Yeah, but like Mad TV, like it was all eccentric characters, and all those actors were just so on point. So good.
Yeah. Anyways. Sorry.
And so going on, after he left Mad TV in 2008, he co-created and starred in the amazing Key and Peele series alongside Keegan-Michael Key, which ran 2012 to 2015. God, it was such a funny fucking show. Like this is what I like about Jordan Peele is he really made himself known for his comedy, like in the beginning, and it was so good, and he had such great comedy. And then after that, of course, he directed probably, what really got him known in horror, and he directed Get Out, his probably most famous movie that he has at this time being, which was also really, really important. And it like really touched on like modern day racism and how modern day racism really looks. And like, it was really like, it got me when we watched it together, Yeah.
It
is super important.
Man, it's one of those movies that puts, we said it before, we'll always say it whenever the example comes up, but horror is definitely one of the best mediums to tackle any hard to talk about issue, whether it is mental health, whether it is, abuse, or whether it is racism. Like, it is one of the few genres that can bring everybody in on a neutral ground, thus being the horror itself, because that's what everybody wants to see, but then leave with like a good message, a good metaphor to actually think about and mull over. And I understand that kind of turns some horror fans away because some people just want the shock the lights, the lids, the glamour, and that's totally cool, man. I'm that same way. That's why we love B horror movies. But if you can walk away for that minute and just appreciate what movies like Get Out have done, or Us, there's something there to really kind of just appreciate the fact that they're touching on something that is prevalent but is really hard to talk about, depending on the facet of life you're coming from.
Oh yeah, man. Like, the reason why I like horror also, and just like you said, it's a way to talk about pretty much like the hardest subjects to talk about. But like, I feel like when it comes to horror, talking about those subjects like, racism, mental health, like there's such a good way. There's so many better ways of doing it with horror, I feel like, than any other genre. Cause like, it's almost to the point, like, of course a comedy can actually touch on like racism. For instance, like Black Klansman has some comedic aspects to it.
Oh yeah.
But it's, of course, it's really eccentric about talking about racism, which Jordan Peele produced Black Klansman.
By the way.
But like but I feel like when it comes to like comedies, dramas, there's such a fine line you have to be on for your message to get across on things like racism and mental health, that it's such a fine line, you have to tiptoe on it, and it's either going to be a super offensive or everyone's going to get it. And it's one of those two ways. But when it comes to horror, like, you can have a movie with a really solid, deep meaning to it, but you can also have all the glitz and glamour and gore around it that's appealing to everyone. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's why I liked Get Out, because it's like, there's this moment of just like where you find out that because I still feel like it's still fresh enough that there's still some people who haven't seen it yet, so I don't really want to give the twist away. But when you do find out the twist, and our protagonist is trying to escape, the twist is
get out.
He's trying.
Sorry, I had to.
That's okay. My laugh probably made that worse, actually. But what I was saying is that it's you're left with this thought of everything that just happened. And you're just like mulling over, just like, holy shit, this is some pretty heavy stuff they're talking about. And then all of a sudden, this dude just gets his head bashed in with like a heavy object, and you're just like, holy shit. And like, it distracts you for a moment to bring you right back to everything that you were thinking about. And obviously not everybody thinks this way, but that's kind of, it seems like that's how, the movie is laid out. And when a lot of movies are laid out like that, it's, let's give them something to distract them real quick with, but have them mold over. Now, if that's ever the intention, more than likely not, but I just noticed from an observation of all the evidence I've seen that's just, it seems to go in that direction, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That being said, I love talking about this subject, and I do genuinely mean that. I know when a lot of podcasts like to do stuff like this, or in general, they have to be careful of the line they toe because they don't want to be offensive. They also don't want to be pandering. But I mean, when we started this podcast again because we love horror, and so we're going to love every part of it. And so I loved these movies. I love seeing these directors and just seeing them come out with films because they, again, there's so many of them that have made so many great films that I've loved and that I've cherished. Candyman especially, again, just being a huge horror phenomenon, now coming back, being remade by Jordan Peele as well. I mean, dude, it's
starring
just
Tony Todd.
Starring Tony, well, not really starring.
Maybe.
He's somehow gonna be involved in Tony Todd's own cryptic way. He's telling everybody there's gonna be involved. The point being is that we do need to take these moments to talk about, these successes and talk about how important it is, because the fact of the matter is, horror is the big, huge melting pot of love that we all want to come to and enjoy. And at the end of the day, we do also just want to watch someone get their head cut off or someone get haunted to death.
And just throw out a couple more like great African American horror movies that we didn't have time to talk about. Death by Temptation, starring Samuel L. Jackson and Denzel. I think that's Denzel Washington. Yeah, Denzel Washington. Also, another movie that was directed by William Crane, Dr. Black and Mr. Hyde, is another blaxploitation horror movie that was really important. Bones, starring Snoop Dogg as the titular killer. I remember when that movie was out.
Bones.
That's so bad, man. That movie looked tight.
Even if you didn't grow up in the hood in any sort of way, like Bones itself is just still worth a watch. Just because, like, I'll tell you this too.
Snoop Dogg as a serial killer. Come on.
I do know people who were scared of Snoop Dogg's portrayal of Bones. Like, they were legit terrified by it. Keep in mind, he's a vigilante essentially in the movie.
Yeah.
But still, like,
it's kind of like The Crow, isn't it?
Yeah. Well,
he's a vengeful spirit.
Yeah, but it's for his community, his neighborhood, because like he originally would keep the peace. I'm gonna just like quickly go over it, but he originally keep the peace, but then eventually people conspired against him, killed him, and now he's coming back to rid the streets of the people that killed him, get his revenge. And you know, he worked hard to keep drugs off his neighborhood streets and whatnot. He was basically just like the Crow, but on a wider scale.
Okay. Yeah, so Bones, and then the Candyman series, of course. We're gonna have to dedicate an entire episode to like just Tony Todd and Dwayne Jones and talk about these awesome actors.
Absolutely. And hey, if our listeners actually really like this episode, let us know. Give us a shout out on Instagram or on Twitter or even Facebook if you really want to use that. I know Facebook's more personal, but still, give us a shout out. Let us know, and we will do a part 2 to this episode. So and I don't know, maybe we will in general.
We're going to like
never mind.
Most definitely we're gonna have touch this subject again, just because like I want to do a little bit more in depth on African American representation in horror, and not just horror, but in films in general. Because for this one, I just wanted to talk about some of the great movies and directors and actors that have touched this great film industry, and like their influences and some of their great achievements. So I want to get more in depth, find the dirt next time.
Absolutely, man. I think we've said everything we could for this episode as well. Another big apology, we didn't do a listener participation corner. The real reason why I will tell you right now is because originally we were actually going to talk about Russian horror films. But with everything happening, we felt it was more appropriate to change the subject to African American horror. So we didn't have time to actually do a listener participation corner. So we do apologize for that. We'll definitely have one out for the next one. Ghouls, gals, creeps, and mutants, you're all beautiful, brilliant, and amazing. If you want to keep up with everything we're doing, you know how to like us, you know how to follow us. That's on Facebook. Just search up Punk Rock Horror Podcast, or on our Twitter at official PRHP. Or I shouldn't say official. Or please don't spell official with an A. It's definitely with an O.
We're on Instagram, Punk Rock Horror Podcast, #PRHP Podcast.
If you want to yell at me about how I pronounce the word Chernobyl, you can do that over on Instagram. Follow me at the Undead
God.
Man.
I want a shirt now where it's the Chernobyl. It's like a fucking nuclear silo, but it's just Cher's face.
Straight up. If I have people that make composite pictures or just Photoshop pictures or whatever of just giant shares and the location of Chernobyl, I will post that shit up on my story. I will post it on my Instagram. I will fully give you credit for all of it. But holy shit, I hope I get like at least 5 like just photos of just like photoshopped giant shares. I'm totally gonna
Chernobyl.
Yeah, like Chernobyl. Yeah, I would love that. Ghouls, Gals, Creeps, and Mutants, if you want to support the show in a financial way, we do have a Patreon, patreon.com/Punk Rock Horror Podcast. Now that everything's opening up a bit more, we are actually going to get the mystery boxes out to everyone. And so hopefully by the time you have heard this recording, you have received your box or is still on your way. Thank you again for being so patient with us on that one. As is with everything with the show, it's always going to take a minute for us to get our footing with anything new we do. So we thank you so much for that, seriously. Also, if you don't want to do that, but rather go support us in a more just, one sale kind of way, you can go over and buy some merch for us over at teespring.com/Punk Rock Horror Podcast. All of our merch is up there. Our amazing artist, Megan, is working on a new shirt design. Hopefully we will be showing it to you this month. So stay tuned for that. We also have merch over at the punkrockhorrorstore.com. Ghouls, Gals, Creeps, and Mutants alike. If you are a band that's wanting to come on the show as well, please send all of your band info to prhpbands@gmail.com. That is where we are receiving all inquiries about coming on the show for an interview.
That's prhpbands@gmail.com. Send all your info there. And if you are an author and want to come on the show as well, please send your email to punkrockhorrorbooks@gmail.com. Those links will be in the episode notes below. Ghouls, gals, creeps, and mutants, thank you again for so much for hanging out with us and let us talk about horror with you. We'll talk to you later next time.
Bye.